Hello students, welcome back to my channel. So today we are starting with the chapter 13 database concepts. Now this is an important concept not just from the point of view of your examination, otherwise also it is a very important information that you need to be learning, right? So as well we have the practical aspects of from this chapter. So this is a bit lengthy chapter, so we will do it one by one, right? So today we will be starting with just the introduction about the database concepts. Okay, so what is the objective of this chapter? So very first thing is to understand the concept of database. Why database? What is database? All those things we are going to learn. Various terms used in the database, that is what are the different terminologies, those fixed words when we say, what is the meaning of each one of them. To understand the various data models, now there are various different kinds of data models which are used to represent a database. We are going to learn them in detail. To understand how the keys are used in the database, now there are some terms, something called as the keys, which we are going to be learning. So what is the meaning of them? And also data warehouse and data mining, we are going to learn a little bit about these two concepts as well, because they are again connected to our database. So these are the main objective of this lesson. So once we complete this, you will be aware of all these things. Okay, so let us start. So when I say database, the very first thing, what does it come to your mind? So database is nothing but it is a collection of data, isn't it? So we come across different types of database in our day-to-day life. So for example, you are a student, the usual database which you will be working upon is the student database. For example, all the your details, be it your name, your register number, your address, phone number, parents detail, all this will be stored in your college, isn't it? In something, the some data collection concept should be there, isn't it? There is some software which collects all this data. Now this forms a database. Okay, so database of your college. Similarly, in our day-to-day life, we come across many such databases knowingly or unknowingly, right? So you can see in this image, so all these, apart from this there are more. Okay, there are more. So these are the few of the example for the database, or you can also say that application of the database. So if at all I'm using a database, what are the different application of it in my day-to-day life? Okay, for example, you see banking. For customer information, accounts and loans and banking transaction, we use a banking database. Now you can see that there will be water meter billing or electricity billing, isn't it? So what does happen there? For example, water meter billing, the different numbers, whatever the customer numbers and all the details are stored in the database and connected to the server based works, isn't it? So about your house, what is the amount of water you have used, all those things get stored in a database, and accordingly they will generate the bill for you. Rail and airlines reservation systems, okay, different reservation systems. Now what happens here? For reservations and schedule information, airlines among the first to use the database in a geographically distributed manner, terminal situated around the world, accessed and central database system through phone lines and other data networks. So of course when I say airlines, it is nothing but what happens in airlines, people will be traveling from one country to another country, isn't it? So I need to maintain the database in one country. For example, if you're traveling from India to USA, the database has to be stored here as well here, the departure as well as the arrival. If it is other way, the departure and arrival. So database need to be there in both the places. So that is what when I say distributed database is nothing but database is available at the different places. Okay, that is another application. Colleges, like day to day where you go, colleges. For student information, course registration and grades, okay, we need a college database. Credit card informations, okay, transaction for purchases on credit cards and generation of monthly statements, again we need database. Telecommunication, as you can see here, for keeping records of call made, generating monthly bills, maintaining balances on prepaid calling cards, and storing information about the communication network, isn't it? How much number of GB you have used, all those details those company keep. How is that? Again, a database is maintained somewhere. Okay, then we have library management system. As you can see, we have accounting and finance, very very important for storing information about holding, sales and purchases of financial instruments such as stocks and bonds. Also like we said, banking. When I say finance, you can relate it to the different mutual funds or the stocks which people are buying. How whatever they have bought has to be stored in some database, whatever they are selling has to be stored in a database, right? Manufacturing. Okay, so see here, manufacturing. What is this? For management of supply chain and for tracking production of items in factories, inventories, in warehouses, stores, and orders, isn't it? So if you're producing something in the factory, there has to be a list of data of what and all things you have manufactured. Similarly, once you manufacture, can you keep it with you? You have to sell it to somebody else, isn't it? Once you sell, once you sold it, once you have shipped it, how many are left with you? All these things, okay? Insurance, broadcasting, human resource management, e-commerce websites are nothing but your Amazon and all those things, Flipkart. So everybody needs databases. So when you say what is an application of database, you can give the example of all this. I hope this is clear. So database is nothing but it is a collection of related data. So all these places are the ones where we apply this, and these are the main application of the database. So now I know that what is the application. Let us learn from the scratch, like what is a database, what are the different things. Very first thing, let us learn what is a data, isn't it? If it is a database, there has to be something. If this is my data, what is database, what is it consisting of? It is consisting of nothing but a smaller data. So what is this data? So students, data is a collection of facts, figures, statistics which can be processed to produce meaningful information. Okay, so understand this definition. Data is everywhere, data is around you, all the things what you see is data. Okay, but that is just a raw facts. It can be facts, figures, statistics. Okay, there is a 5 pen lying around you, that 5 pen becomes a data. There is a book of second PUC lying around you, that is a data. Your name is a data. But when you process, okay, when you process, as in you arrange it in a meaningful way, and then it becomes an information. So what is the definition of information? That means information is a processed data. Okay, so what is information? Information is the processed data. The data can be anything. It can be a collection of any different kinds of facts. It will not have any meaning, but once it's processed, it becomes an information and then it becomes meaningful. Okay, so that is about data. So this is database is made up of data, isn't it? So what are the different forms of data? So this is the image you can see here. There are n number of data around us. Okay, data file, any file. Okay, text file, spreadsheet, so excels, all those things. Images, various images, isn't it? In Facebook, Instagram, everywhere you upload the images or you download the images, that is also a data. Okay, drawings, different kinds of drawings. It can be an architecture using the drawing certain ideas or blueprints, that is again a data. Audio, different kinds of music you upload or you download, all these things. Videos, nowadays I think mainly these kind of data is more and more in use, right? So this is usually in the office and all. You can see these, you can see more in social medias. So all these are comprised, they all become a data. Okay, when it is arranged in a meaningful way, that becomes an information. And when we collect and store the related data in a single space, that becomes our database, right? I hope this is clear to you. So now that we know what is the data, information, different types of data, let us see how the database evolution was done. Okay, how it started initially. So historically, when the file management came into existence, that is when people required a different files to be maintained. Okay, it can be a paper, pen paper, pencil paper. So see here, paper and pencil systems. Initially it started with that, where people were collecting the data in a physical manner. Okay, such systems are often manual, paper and pencil systems. The papers within these systems were organized to facilitate the expected use of the data, Typically, this was accomplished through a system of file folders and filing cabinets. So what do you understand by that? Whatever data you are writing in this, used to store it in a files. Okay, in the initial days, as long as a collection of data was relatively small and organization's user had a few reporting requirements. Okay, few reporting requirements. The manual system served its role well as a data repository. However, as organization grew, and the reporting requirements became more complex, keeping track of a data in a manual file system became more difficult. Therefore, companies looked for computer technology for help. Okay, so writing manually, collecting the data, everything manually is more cumbersome. Why do you think so? Because see, if at all I'm collecting a student data in some file and I'm filing it. If it is a small class of 30 members, it is fine. If it is an class or a university or a college with 1000 or 3000 students, every time a student want to access his data, it is very difficult if you have to do it manually. So it is always better to go into the computer um, technology, mainly because retrieval, okay, if you want to access certain data, if you want to update certain data, it becomes very useful. That is when the computerized technology, that is nothing but your database, came into picture from your manual file systems. Okay, so what is this computerized file system? The computer files within the file system were similar to the manual files. The description of the computer files requires a specialized vocabulary. Every discipline develops its own terminology to enable the practitioners to communicate clearly. That is nothing but, for example, now when you are storing something, you create a folder, isn't it? Folder, and you give name. For example, if you're storing the contents of a PUC, second PUC data, you will store in that folder saying PUC. If you're storing the data of first PUC, then you will name it as PUC, isn't it? That is nothing but naming conventions, okay? So that we understand it. And next time when I want to open, I can just double click here and directly I can open this file. Okay, so that is what initially evolution of database happened. We started with pen paper, then we moved on to the computerized files which looked similar to the paper files, and later on we moved further to the database concept as the organization grew bigger and there were more people working in it. Okay, let's quickly go through the difference between manual and computerized electronic data processing. Okay, so the volume of the data which can be processed is limited here and also within a limited time, wherein which the volume of the data which can be processed is very large here. Okay, manual data processing requires large quantity of paper. Reasonable less amount of paper is used here. We will not say that no papers are used, but reasonable less amount of paper is used. The speed and accuracy at which a job is executed is limited, of course, because it is done manually by the people, isn't it? People are tend to get tired and all those stuff. But when it comes to computer, the job executed is faster and accurate. Labor cost is high because we need more people here. Labor cost is economical as we do need people but less. Storage medium is paper here. Storage medium is secondary storage medium. So those secondary storage medium is nothing but our hard disk, hard drive, CD, all those things. We will not be storing it in paper at all. So these are the main difference, students. You should be knowing about manual data processing and computerized electronic data processing, right? Now that we know what is data, what is the database, what is the difference between manual and initial days, which are the different types of method we used, let us move on to a data processing cycle. How are we going to store or collect the data? We process the data, isn't it? So see here, the way information is processed in a computer information management system. Okay, so these are the steps. First is data input. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to take a data, I'm going to collect the data and I'm going to take it, then I will process it. Now processing is nothing but I will collect the required information from that set of data. Then output can be if the user want to see that information right now, I'm going to show it to him. Okay, rest I'm going to store it in my uh, respective secondary storage device, and after that next data collection. Okay, that is, data collection is nothing but either I'll be collecting from the storage or from other resources as well. Now this collected data again is given as a input for the next processing cycle. Okay, next processing cycle might be needing the same set of information, so I'll be collecting from here. So this cycle will continue. Okay, so remember there is going to be 5 steps. First is I will input the data into the processing cycle, then I'm going to process it, that is I'll collect the required information, then that information will be shown to the user, and also it is stored in the secondary device. These stored data can be sometimes collected if the same set of data is required for the next cycle. So this cycle will continue. So this is called as a data processing cycle. Okay, so this is how we will collect the data. So now let us see what are the different terms used in the database, right? So now that we know the data processing cycle, what is database and all those things, for the future classes we will be learning things in depth. So for that we should know what are the different terms we use. So the very first one is file. File is basic unit of a storage in the computer system. I think we all know very well what is the file. File is the basic unit of a storage in a computer. Now, what is a database? A database is a collection of logically related data organized in a way that data can be easily accessed, managed, and updated. So, the very important term is collection of logically related data. You cannot combine different kinds of data. So, if it is an employee database, you have to have the details of the employee. You cannot have a student data in it. Okay, so that is what the meaning of collection of logically related data means. So what is a tables? Now tables is something which we use in a database. Okay, a table is a collection of data element organized in terms of rows and columns. So we are going to see them more. So usually in a database, especially in a relational database, a tables datas are collected and ordered and written in the form of tables. Okay, so what next comes the term record. So what is a record? A single entry in a table is called as a record. So suppose if I have a table like this, okay, see this single entry is called as a record or a row. A record in a table represents a set of related data. Okay, so next term what we are going to see is tuple. So what is a tuple? A record, the same row whatever we saw, that row is sometimes also called as a tuple. The other name for the record or the row is tuple. What is fields? Fields is each column is identified by a distinct header called as attribute or field. So when I say I have a table like this, okay, of course for each table I should have a header, isn't it? For example, what is this representing? Name, age. Okay, so this is called as a field. Okay, now what is a domain? Domain is a set of values for an attribute in that column. So what do you mean by that? For example, name. So if I have students called as Asha, Usha, Reena, okay, these are the only 3 students I have in my class. So the values of in these records has to be any one of them, isn't it? So this becomes a domain of that particular attribute. This becomes a domain of name attribute. So that is what the meaning of that. That is set of values for an attribute in that column. What is an entity? An entity is an object such as a table or a form. An entity relationship is how each table link to each other. So when I say entity, you can imagine that this table becomes an entity. Okay, it is an entity, so it is an object such as a table or a form. An entity relationship is how table link to each other. So what is the meaning of that? So if I have an employee table, if I have another table called as product, okay, of course in a company they are producing certain products. Who are producing it? Employees are producing it. So these tables are related. So how am I going to link? There is a relationship which you're going to show, okay, that we will learn in the further coming classes in detail. So these tables can be related to or linked to each other. So this one form, one table becomes an entity. This is another entity. I hope these terminologies are clear to you. When we are going to use them again and again, it will become more and more clear. So that's all in today's class, students. So this is just an introduction to the database. In the coming classes, we will be learning the different architecture and different commands also in the coming sessions. right? So I hope these videos are helping you all in your studies. So thank you for watching. Keep learning.